It's great to welcome to the program today Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona. Senator, I don't even know where to start, but let's start somewhere. We are seeing, after what was hailed as a miraculous action of economic instinct, a big bump in the stock market yesterday. The declines resume in an environment that some of your colleagues, like Senator Schiff, are concerned point more to market manipulation and pump and dump than just ignorance from the White House. I'd love to get your 30,000 foot view right now of basically dating back to March 24th when this stock market decline started. What do you think is the most important prism through which to understand what's happening with the tariffs and the market right now?
Well, I think the best prism to think about this policy that we've seen put in place and then removed and then reinstated and changed over and over and over again is just the prism of competence and whether or not this administration is competent enough to administer the economy of the United States, the biggest economy in the world. Um, I think I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, the president said something that I think was rather instructive. He said, "No other president would have done what I did." And that's a quote from Donald Trump. And I think that's true.
I think so too.
Yeah, because any other president would have known better and would know that the path to success for our economy, for the American people, for American families, for American companies is not trade wars, especially with our allies. We do well in the world, not just because we are a military and economic superpower. We do well because we have friends across the globe. And that means we have business relationships and economic relationships that are positive. And he just flipped those over. He's like, the guy that runs into the party and, flips the whole table over with all the drinks on it, right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And I think over the last couple of days, he started to realize it. He's got a bunch of yes people around him, folks at his Secretary of Commerce and Treasury that won't tell him that his ideas stink. But when you destroy $6 trillion of wealth practically overnight, you're going to hear from the outside world. And I think that's what happened here.
Do you think there is at least enough to look into the market manipulation insider trading angle here?
Yeah, with this administration, sure. I mean, a president and his family who have meme coins and the expected rug pull on them, in the case of at least one of them, that looks to be the case to me. I don't think that's been investigated. Uh, but I do think it's fair to look into this. Was there anybody around him, or maybe the president's stockbroker, or anybody that could have some inside information that traded on that information? If you know what he's going to do, you can pretty accurately predict when you're making big decisions like this how the economy and how the markets are going to be impacted.
In terms of your constituents in Arizona, if the tariffs eventually do come fully in force and start to trickle down to businesses of different sizes, we're hearing about 3,000 or $6,000 iPhones, and you hear about all this big picture stuff. Can you talk about some of your constituents in Arizona in tangible terms, what these tariffs could mean for the prices that folks will ultimately be paying for products?
Yeah, they're going to be paying a lot more, and it's not it's not trickling down over a period of time. It's happening already. I've got a friend that just told me that he has a container sitting in the port of Los Angeles that has $75,000 of product in it that he purchased from China. It has recently arrived. To get it out of customs, he has to pay $100,000 in tariffs. There's $75,000 of stuff in the container. He's immediately going to pass on as much of that cost as he possibly can to his customers. Probably can't do all of it. So there's going to be losses for his business in the short term. And by the way, if those tariffs get undone later, he doesn't get his money back. So we're seeing it already, and it's going to happen rather quickly. You talk about a $6,000 iPhone. I don't think somebody's going to buy a $6,000 iPhone.
Right.
So that will hurt jobs at Apple. Apple employs a lot of people here in the United States. So those folks will start to see some job loss from this. And what ultimately happens is more people get laid off, the economy starts to shrink, we go into a recession. Some economists are saying that's already happening. Like we're going to see a second quarter of negative growth in the economy, which isn't good. When we have a recession, other bad things happen beyond just people losing their jobs. I mean, death rates go up. You know, there are huge negative impacts, and this is self-inflicted. This president inherited a rather decent economy. Inflation was coming down, unemployment was low, the stock market was at the highest levels we've seen. Those are good things. We also had problems. I will admit it. Housing prices are too high.
Yep.
Price of groceries are too high. He said he was going to address these things, and his policies have done exactly the opposite.
I'm curious your thoughts, and maybe also interestingly the thoughts of your Republicans in the Senate as well, if they share with you. We're starting to see, for example, in the New Republic, there's an interesting piece this morning that some of the economic experts, in light of the last 72 hours, this is a quote, are wondering whether Trump is insane. In other words, to put it less cartoonishly, whether this is less about malevolence or grift, but it's just there's an instability of some sort fundamentally there. That's just one example. What do you and maybe some of your Republican colleagues privately think about the genesis of all of this and the kind of lack of a master plan? Is this about personal gain the way some propose? Is it he doesn't know what he's doing, or the wrong people are directing him? We saw you had a very sort of public conflict with Elon Musk, for example, who's behind a lot of what's going on, although he's against the tariffs, interestingly enough. He's broken on that. How do you see it?
I think the genesis is the one in the middle, right? You remember what you said in the middle. You presented three different options, where the last one, people around him. The first one was something else, and I already forgot what it was. Maybe I got the same
That
issue.
he's insane.
That one. I don't think it's that.
Okay.
I think it is. He just doesn't really have a good grasp on what it takes to make good decisions.
Mm.
He goes by he says this. He admits to it. He goes with his instincts, but he's got bad instincts. That's why he's filed for bankruptcy multiple times. That's why he couldn't successfully run a casino, which, by the way, you can make an argument is a business that just is a money printing machine, and he wasn't able to successfully do this. So I think it's that piece of it. Hey, this is a guy who said he is a genius over and over again. Have you ever heard anybody say such a thing? I can only think of one other person. I'm not going to name who it is, but one other person that's ever said this to me, that they're really, really smart. Smart people generally don't say that. He says it. I haven't heard him say it in a while, and I certainly don't think he would risk saying it this week. But he says it a lot. Smart people don't say that.
We're only 7.5 months from 2026, as crazy as that is. And very soon, voters are going to start to think about, okay, here's how this has gone so far since the president was sworn in. Here's how it's gone with Republicans controlling the House and Senate. We now have some choices to make. One of the things that I'm hearing from my audience when we've heard from Senator Booker, for example, or Senator Schiff, is that we see really well-intentioned people, but we're not feeling that they're articulating specific reasons to vote for Democrats in November of 2026. Yes, a lot of bad things are happening. Yes, Trump's incompetent, the grift, the scams. Yes, absolutely. But to some degree, we can't just be voting against that. We need something to vote for. And a lot of people in my audience, and I know that at the town halls, this sometimes comes up as well, aren't thrilled right now with the state of the Democratic Party. What needs to happen between now and 2026 to change that?
Well, I get their frustration. We suck at the messaging side of this. We're not good at it. I think Democrats generally are good at the policy. A little too, and we get too specific about the stuff we're trying to do and not enough about how it affects real people at home, sitting around their kitchen table with all like my mom. I remember my mom used to was the one who was paying the bills. She'd have all this stuff out. She paid a lot of money for a calculator when calculators became a real thing. And I remember it sitting on the kitchen table, and she would have to figure out how to manage this stuff. Because at the time, my dad was a police officer, she was a secretary and a waitress. That's most families in America are just trying to figure this out. And I think Democrats, we just kind of suck at explaining what we're trying to do here to help them. Um, Elections are about choices. They're going to have to evaluate what this president and this administration is doing, which, in my view, really, really bad, not helping them, just helping billionaires at the expense of them and their families. Prices are going to go up. Billionaires are going to get a big tax cut. People are going to lose their Medicaid if they get their health care through Medicaid. Or in Arizona, it's called access. In most states, it's not called Medicaid, by the way.
Right.
And a lot of people don't even realize that they get their health care from Medicaid. I did a couple town halls on this a week ago and heard from people that this is going to really hurt. Um, so, David, to answer your question, we got to do a better job explaining this stuff because we've failed pretty miserably at it so far. I'm committed to trying to do better. I'm trying to reach people where they're at, not just on MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News, on podcasts like yours and others, on social media, um, on Twitter, even though it's owned by Elon Musk. We go we go and use Twitter. It's a platform that reaches a lot of people. It's kind of a hellscape now when I don't advise people to look at the comments.
No. Well,
But
what about, like, for example, to take one of these issues, crime, right? Because one of the things that was true during the 2024 campaign was that nationally crime was down. We've seen the data, right? We see the national statistics. Violent crime is generally trending down, property crime is generally trending down. At the same time, many voters felt, we know from exit polling data and from people who call in, they felt concerns about crime were dismissed by Kamala Harris's campaign. And so crime may have been down nationally, but people felt invalidated with regard to what they were seeing in their communities. What's the right messaging on that from Democrats to both acknowledge that crime is down, but also this is still a concern and your concerns are heard? I don't think we got that in 2024.
well, maybe you don't acknowledge that it's down. Crime is always a real concern. There are people getting murdered every day in our country, and they're getting robbed and they're getting ripped off. So maybe you don't have to acknowledge the first part that it's down. Maybe you say, "Hey, here are the solutions that we have for this.
Hmm.
Here's what we want to do. We want to deport criminals. I do. Gang members, they should get kicked out of the country with due process. And by the way, we want to be careful enough that we don't kick out people that are don't fall into those categories when there is no reason. We've got to be incredibly careful, and folks need to have their due process rights and a day in court. But we've got to have solutions to problems. Getting firearms, this is an issue I used to work on, and my wife, Gabby Giffords, does every single day, is
Yep.
getting guns out of the hands of criminals and domestic abusers and people who are mentally ill. That's a big problem. Until that number gets driven down to zero, especially among kids, it's still a big problem in this country. Even if it's one kid getting shot and killed because of a firearm in the hands of somebody that shouldn't have one, that is a big problem. So I think that's probably the way we should approach this. And I do think we have better ideas and better solutions. I mean, it was up to um, the Republican Party and the people around them and the people that they listen to. It would be everybody would be carrying a gun on every street in America and nobody would be safe. That's what
They
would happen.
claim everybody would be safe, of course.
But if you look at data, and now
Yeah,
here I'm gonna talk about the wonky side of this that doesn't
right.
work well in talking to regular people. But But just think about it for a second. If there's a gun in every conflict, just, one, especially two, it's more likely somebody gets shot. And when somebody gets shot, they get killed. And the statistics support that where there are stronger gun laws, there is less gun violence. That is true. That's factual. Um, but I think on issue after issue, I think we have better ideas. Billionaires can pay more in taxes. They shouldn't be getting a tax cut. And if they do, we can stabilize programs in a positive way, like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, where when people pay their fair share. We want a strong national defense. I'm on the Armed Services and the Intelligence Committee. We have to do it in a smart way. We have to put competent people in these jobs. Pete Hegseth is not a competent SecDef. The guy had no business even being considered. His name should have never been in front of the president as an
Right.
option. But he got selected because he spent 9 years on Fox News. So you have to put, as Democrats, I think we like to put really competent people in jobs. This administration puts people who are on TV. That's the number one qualification for them. Um, and we got to keep fighting. I'm here in Washington, D.C. Every day fighting for my constituents and for the American people and pushing back on this administration when they do dumb things. And when I can find some opening where maybe they do have a decent idea, or maybe I have a good idea that they can adopt, which they did yesterday with an executive order on the what's called on my Ships for America Act, which is to rebuild the merchant marine. I will work with them because the goal at the end of the day is that we have an economy that's working for everybody and that everybody's safe. Those are the two things that really matter.
Well,
Everything else.
Senator, you've got your work cut out for you for sure, but I think that you're absolutely what you're saying, I believe, will resonate with my audience anyway. That the messaging and the way that Democrats are dealing with some of these issues definitely can use a little bit of a modification, for lack of a better term. Senator Mark Kelly, of course, from Arizona, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.